Here's a recent rockfall at Wilton Quarry, and quarries are probably more common for having loose rock than other cliffs, but wherever you go climbing there's always a chance of coming across loose rock as you climb. There's always a chance of rocks falling off and unfortunately maybe even hitting you. So the things to look out for are maybe obvious sort of blocks that you can see from the ground that look loose, lots of cracks around areas of rock where they may imply that that rock is loose and going to come out. And basically when you're climbing, not just sort of going up blindly, assuming that the rock is all very, very solid. The tops of cliffs as well can be often more vulnerable than the sort of the lower parts of a climb, and so you need to be especially careful when you're topping out on your routes. Things to look out for when trying to identify loose rock are big sort of cracks around an area of the rock, or maybe a block that's obviously jutting out and completely detached from the rock around it. Also, at quarries and other venues, the rock may be looser the higher you get up your climb, so you need to be especially careful when topping out on a climb. All crags are vulnerable to loose rock, so wherever you're climbing, don't assume that the rock is always going to be completely solid, and if you come across loose rock, try and avoid it, climb around it, or if necessary, just retreat off your route. So looking at this cliff behind me, you can identify a few features that you may sort of want to pick out when you're trying to identify loose rock. So we've got that sort of hanging almost fang of rock there. So seeing that, obviously rock below it has fallen out. So in the back of my mind, I might be thinking, I wonder if another bit of rock's going to fall off there if my route was going up there. You can also see the very top of the cliff, how it sort of finishes with some very broken bands of rock, lots of vegetation. I mean, a very sort of sure sign that there's probably some loose rock there. So if your route was sort of finishing here, you'd want to make sure you got some really good gear in the last bit of really solid rock, should you be unfortunate enough to slip when finishing the climb to the very, very top of the cliff. Also, with all that vegetation, then there's an increased chance maybe of slipping with your rock boots on the grass. And then finally, on that section over there, you can even see some trees growing out of the rock. Now, if there's sort of a tree growing out of a crack, then one can assume that its roots must be sort of going down into that crack, and maybe an increased chance of those roots slowly opening up those cracks. So maybe I'd be sort of conscious that there could be some loose rock there should my climb be going over lots of quite heavily vegetated rock as well. So in this area of the quarry, we've got no vegetation at the top of the climbs, and actually the rock looks quite solid from the bottom to the top, and where you top out on these routes you haven't got lots of bands of loose rock. So looking at routes here, you may feel more confident to feel that when you top out it's going to be more straightforward, and also that the climbs themselves look relatively solid.